The power of love. Join us for a soul-centering meditation, connecting to the love within your heart as a way to focus and receive divine love, the doorway to spiritual transformation. Join me and Jane Mountrose.
Heart radio programs should not be used to replace your legal or medical advice, nor your own sound judgment. In truth, nothing can dim your magnificence. You are a divine spark, a universal light. You are here on purpose. You are part of a divine plan, and it's our joy to support you. We're here to celebrate you. Welcome to Angel Heart Radio. Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by angellight777.com. A divinely ordered life with spiritual teacher Deb Goldberg on Angel Heart Radio starts now.
Welcome everyone to Angel Heart Radio. I'm your host, Deb Goldberg, and it brings me great pleasure to be here with you today. It's an honor to bring you and serve you in the highest way that I can by bringing you divine messages of love and blessings for your life. You are dearly loved and cherished. So I have with me tonight a wonderful, wonderful woman that I had the pleasure of meeting through Enlightened World Network, and her name is Jane Mountrose, and she is a recognized pioneer and expert in the fields of life coaching and healing. She's a writer, a minister, and trainer with 30 years of experience in spiritual development and powerful techniques for healing. Along with her husband, Philip, Jane serves primarily as a founding director of Awakenings Institute, a nonprofit organization developed to creating a more loving world where each individual's unique gifts are honored and nurtured. Jane, welcome to Angel Heart Radio.
Oh, thank you so much, Deb. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm just so happy. And I love that introduction, the Angel Heart introduction. And I think it goes to the essence too of what we need is we need to, you said it's about you and the divine plan, and that's what we need. We need to recognize the truth of who we are as wonderful spiritual beings who are here with for a reason, with a purpose and special gifts, each of us. So I just really was touched by that.
Oh, well, thank you. That is our founder, Anaya Joy Halili, who founded Angel Heart Radio, and it actually comes out of Australia. And there's several podcast hosts on it, and we have a little bit different shows, each one of us. So there's something there for everyone, but it is all actually, it says on it, it's powered by love.
Right.
It was divinely organized as a way to share, to help people know that they matter.
Right. And it's important for our growth to understand that. Really important, essential.
It is essential. And so we have a great discussion tonight on the power of love. And Jane has Awakenings Institute with her husband, Philip. And we were just talking about spiritual development and how the power of love plays a role. Well, it is the heart of spiritual development. There's nothing else you can say. It is the heart of spiritual development.
Right.
So maybe, Jane, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It's really interesting when we talk about the power of love, or there's phrases like follow your heart and love and happiness, and these kinds of phrases we easily talk about, but we don't fully grasp how important they are. This is my feeling about it. There's very common, and they sound good. They make us feel good. But as you were mentioning, and as I feel also, the heart and the power of love is the essence of the spiritual journey. It's about learning to love, and specifically learning to love ourselves. And so it's like, to me, it's like a secret hidden in plain sight. It took me years. We have my husband and I have a long story. at a certain point, though, we went on a search for our own truth. And it took us years to find it. People have different techniques for you can, receive guidance and wisdom. And we received, it's kind of like they were peripheral and they were okay, but it didn't get to the heart of the get to the heart of the matter, which is really about connecting with the love in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the process that we do, the when you refer to soul centering, is about connecting with the love in your heart and viewing the heart as, well, in many different spiritual paths, it's considered, it's like the center, it's obviously the center of your being, and it's also considered the spiritual bridge. And I can explain a little more about that too, if you'd like, as we go through this, that it's a bridge between what in the body, everything has meaning. So the heart is at the center of your being. It's the bridge to a higher reality, which is expressed in the higher energy centers, chakras, and the lower energy centers express our current reality. So it is in the body actually very clearly a bridge between the lower and the higher. And it is really as we open to love and can transform our perspectives on who we are from limited, we think we're these limited physical beings that where also possibly where forces beyond our control really have power over us, when actually we are creative spiritual beings who have power over our own lives and our reality. And so and it all comes together in that place.
It certainly does. It certainly does. And what a journey it is to go in and find that for each person. I mean, that's what I believe our spiritual journey is about, is going inside, like you're saying, and connecting to your heart and finding that there's treasures in there that you had
Right.
no idea about,
Mm-hmm.
and how full your heart is, that it's so full. And I know for myself, I spent so many years like contracting my heart so I wouldn't get hurt.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of us have, we could say energetically cages around our hearts, or
Mhm,
we just constrict ourselves to protect ourselves from the perceived threats, in our daily lives.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's common.
mhm. Yeah. So until when I was awoke, and that was really abrupt, and recognized that there's so much more inside our heart than I would have ever imagined. And I couldn't even imagine going through the rest of my life not having that connection of the power of love. And for me, I call that God. People call it source energy or universe or Buddha or Jesus, or that there's all kinds of names, right, for it. But I feel that source energy is God. That's what I call it. And the comfort and the healing that I received from connecting in my heart was amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, I agree. It truly is. And it's an interesting time now, especially with all of the challenges that we're facing, that and doing healing work with a lot of people, what I'm finding is it's pretty common for people to feel like they've been abandoned by God, and or it's some kind of variation on that, which is really something that it's important to confront that now and really open, and that is a sign of that actually is that you're protecting your heart, that you feel, like, and it makes sense in a certain way to feel abandoned, like how could this be happening to us,
Mhm.
how could we have this loving God and have this happen to us? So it raises a lot of, really, I guess, kind of big questions about the meaning of life, and those really basic things that we have to face. And when we can see through that that's not what this is about, that in fact if you look, our approach is very holistic, like recognizing that everything is connected, And if that's actually true, that means there is no separation between us and our Creator,
Mhm.
between us and the angels who are here to guide us, and the masters and our own personal guides. It's
Mhm.
all there. And it
Mhm.
is our illusion that we're separate. That's the big illusion.
It certainly is. And actually, I was writing a book with a friend of mine on spiritual trauma, and that trauma is started with the belief in separation.
Right.
And yeah, it's a terrible feeling to have that you are separated. And I think for myself, I probably didn't even give that thought for many, many years. Like it wasn't a conscious thought of mine. Uh, I knew there was a God somewhere. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand how to conceptualize that until I was awoke. And so that feeling of separation it can feel really awful for people. And like you said, this is a perfect time to go in and ask those questions that you have about why is this happening, or or better yet, what's another way that I can perceive this?
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah. And well, it's actually, if we are looking at this as an opportunity for personal development and potentially a transformation of some kind on the planet, which is certainly a possibility. That's what we need to do, is we need to go inside. And when we do that, this is what we realized when we started just connect. It's a simple process of connecting with the love you hold in your heart. And as Deb suggested, a lot of us have developed protection around our hearts. And that, unfortunately, that protection also protects us from experiencing the fullness of that love. So it is really about developing a relationship with your heart. And it's interesting because scientifically, uh, there are a lot of interesting facts that have been discovered. Is it okay if I read some of these from
Oh,
the Heart Math
sure.
Institute?
Yeah.
Because I think it's good to also, we need to, another thing that happens is that the head and the heart come together, and often they're in opposition to one another. Like a person says, well, my head says this, and my heart says that, and I don't know what to do. And the Heart Math Institute has been doing research and actually focusing on different ways to open the heart for decades now. And some of the things they've discovered, which are interesting, both spiritually and also physically for where we are currently, focusing on heart feelings like love, appreciation, and kindness shifts heart rhythms. It reduces stress hormones, which is stress is a huge factor, and relaxes the body's inner systems. It reduces also wear and tear on all the organs. It has a protective and regenerative effect that counters the effects of aging. And also, from our perspective, it brings us into harmony with our true identities as wonderful spiritual beings with special gifts to share. I kind of put that as an aside. And the Heart Math Institute is, we're talking about scientists, so they can only go so far. They do talk about how it opens intuition, but they can only go so far, I think, with that part of it. Um, Using heart math, they've seen reduction in rapid heart rate, sleeplessness, fatigue, tension, indigestion, and body aches, even blood pressure, hormone balance, anxiety, and depression. Ultimately, they say the head knows and the heart understands. This is our experience too. And developing a connection with the heart, the major systems of the body work in harmony. And this is the thing, it creates a different sense. They call it something they call entrainment, which is optimal functioning of ourselves. If we're wanting to connect with our full potential, the heart can pull the rest of the body's system into this new level of entrainment. So it is worth, and this is what we have done, is we we still sit down and connect with our hearts, and I wear hearts. I remind myself of it all the time. I
Mhm.
just want to be in that loving place. When we started, I sat down every morning. I got up. I was an architect then, and I sat down every morning. I got up a half an hour early, which was hard for me to do at first. I thought, well, gee, I don't have enough time already here. I'm giving up this time for this. But it changed my life immediately. Just opening, and we'll do a version of it today, opening to that love, that it just starts to reflect in everything. And from that place, you recognize the truth of who you are. Where we started, that each of us is a divine being. We're spiritual beings, and we're part of a bigger plan. We've come here with something special to offer. And we are, it's our birthright really to reopen to that connectedness with the truth. So I think, I can't say enough about it. I mean, it's like you were saying, it's really the heart of the matter. It's the essence of the whole process that we're going through.
Mm. And yeah, and so that's great information for us to, because I know a lot of us, our heart and our head, sometimes, like you're saying, do say the opposite things, and it gets kind of confusing of what do you go by,
Right.
and your heart it's like spirit leading. It is just so beautiful, because what we find out is that all that exists is love anyway. And so we want to perceive everything with our heart. And so going in, like you're talking about, and taking the time, and whatever time works for people, is so important. Uh, it is an unraveling of you, really, the journey of going back to the beginning of really who you are, your divine nature. The whole
Right.
the whole journey, you think you're going forward, but you're really unpeeling the layers of who you really are,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And having a relationship with your heart, for me, that means relationship with God, relationship with myself, relationship with creation, because it is all one. Like you're saying, it's oneness. And it is such a beautiful process of knowing that that love resides within you as you, and taking time to, uh, even if it's 5 minutes to get started, of spending time with your heart, is the most wonderful thing that you could ever do for yourself and your friends and family. It completely shifts your whole life, uh, of getting to know
Right.
yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah. We're obviously very much in agreement about all of this. And another part of it for me is when I started, I would make that connection and feel the love. You surround yourself with the love, which we can do now, just breathing in love and feeling it all around ourselves and in our bodies. Um, I would do that. And then I wanted wisdom. I wanted to have divine wisdom. And so I started writing down. I would ask questions. I would write the questions down and then write down the responses from that place, which I would consider being connected with the soul. But it's interesting because with clients, I found that if I would say, now, what does your soul have to say for this? We do the soul centering, and they'd be in that heart place, and they would freeze. It's like, oh, well, I don't know about the soul. But it's really from this loving place. When you're coming from that place of love, you are connected spiritually with, well, what you were saying, with the oneness, with the truth. And then you can just write, well, what is the truth about my value? And just write down what comes to mind. Why am I here? Write down what comes to mind. And I'm not suggesting, well, should I sell everything and move to Hawaii or something? I wouldn't suggest that kind of guidance, especially not to start, because I've seen people do things that are ungrounded. And
Mhm.
I think also that's why I like to read things like the heart math facts, because you want to bring the head along with you. So you
Mhm.
need to be providing proof for the head of what you're really following in your heart. And they do then eventually they come together.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's much easier too, because you're not fighting yourself.
Yeah. That's a beautiful explanation, and we don't want to fight ourselves. I've done that for years,
Right.
with resistance, and it just creates, energetically all kinds of problems within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, you know, when you were talking about, when students come in and you ask, what is your soul saying? It's interesting because we keep seeing the separation within our own self. It's like, I don't know what it's saying. Well, it is you,
Right,
right?
it's just you.
It is just you. But we have learned not to pay attention to our intuition or trust ourselves or understand that that separation, that you are living spirit. It is, whether you want to call it God is you. God is you as you. And that is probably, I think, a lot of people struggle with that. I know I did that for a long time, of understanding, well, that that just, you try to make sense with it with your head, and you can't. It's your
Right.
heart. It's so when you connect with your heart, like you're talking about, and you can feel the oneness in the love, then you understand there is no separation, um, from the source of your life.
Right. Right. And it is, again, it's the head and the heart that aren't able to come together. I told you my story,
Yeah.
and when I did originally connect with the heart, which was 3 decades ago now, it was quite a while ago. I originally connected with what I perceived as a guide who had a name, and it was a wonderful thing. Went on for more than a decade, almost 20 years. And then I would connect with the guide in the morning. We would talk, and I would write down messages, and then eventually the guide stopped coming, and there was kind of a process of shifting that occurred. And after a very short time, the voice who came said that it was God. And it, for me, it was something I had to confront that, because it really freaked me out. I thought, well, how could that be? I can't. What would my, kind of, what would my family say? Or I say, I'm talking to God. Um, so it took me actually some months to be able to fully integrate it. But I think what it brings up is kind of almost what you might call the original sin, which is how we went from a state of connectedness to a state of separation. And it takes different forms, but it can be something like, well, I'm not deserving, I'm not worth it, I'm not good enough. I felt like I was deeply flawed. I was embarrassed how flawed I was. I thought anybody who actually knew anything spiritually understood that I was just spiritually a mess. And then when it came time to actually communicate with God, and I knew I needed guidance, and they weren't offering me any choices either. It was like, well, you can talk to God, or you can talk to these other beings, or these other guides or masters or something. It was, no, this is it. And I realized I didn't feel worthy. Like, who am I
Mhm.
to say that I have a connection with God? And really, the truth is, who are you not to say that you have one? And it's not from an ego perspective, it's from really a very humble kind of just, I'm in perfect harmony with everything kind of a perspective.
That's
And
beautiful.
realizing that we all have that. It's not like, well, I
Mhm.
talk to God.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because of that, and there are people who say that, and they want people to follow them and do what
Mhm.
they tell them to do. That's not it.
Mhm.
It's
No.
really about each of us finding our own truth and following our paths as we understand them. So,
Totally my belief as well. Totally my belief, and gone through the same thing of, uh And I think everything does go back to that story of original sin, is where everything, it's really a metaphor for what we go through. And it's amazing how deep that is within all of us. And so part of the process is exhuming all those faulty beliefs and recognizing who you are.
Right.
So Jane, you were talking about um, the spiritual transformation and activations and changes that we go through. And I thought that would be an interesting conversation to have. Like you said, you had a one spiritual guide for 10 years, and then all of a sudden that disappeared, and then God showed up. So that there's a constant evolution of us in our spiritual transformation.
Right.
So and I know that you look at it in a holistic way, and have a method or a framework to look at that. So maybe you could share some of that with us.
No, I'd love to. I think both of us are fascinated by all of this.
Hmm.
So over the years, when my husband Philip and I were interested in spiritual development, I researched different kind of esoteric beliefs on how we evolve, and there are different. You can go through and find different definitions of stages that we go through in our evolution, and how exactly all of that works. So I was always interested in it, and interested in. I'm a self-help person too, I think, at heart. So I was always interested, well, how can we make this go faster and smoother and better? And it's kind of like you read and it says, well, it can take lifetimes to go through one stage of your development. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want that. So then we moved into teaching, and we and also I think even when I was an architect, I could perceive. I became a manager, so I could perceive in the people I was working with how they were growing and evolving. You start to, if you're focused on it, you start to notice that everybody is growing and evolving. And then we started teaching when we shifted into holistic healing, and all of the different things that we do now. We became trainers fairly quickly in the 90s, and I started noticing again with our students that how they were evolving, and actually that they were moving very quickly by being with us, because our program, we have one program, we have different ones, but our premier one, people are with us for a year, sometimes several years, and maybe ongoing, just because of the nature of our connections. So I started really perceiving that, and even with all of the things that I'd seen before, I felt like it was slightly different. So Philip and we came to a point where we wrote a book on, we call it Getting Through to Your Soul, which has soul centering and all of this in it. And so we defined the stages as we perceive them, and we ended up with 7 stages, and we were writing the book. And it wasn't until we came to the end of writing the book and we realized, well, the 7 stages relate to the 7 energy centers in the body. So it's kind of like there's that idea of a spiritual ladder, like we're climbing the ladder, and people go through stages. The first stage is focused more on physical survival, and then you go into it's a more emotional level where they're functioning, and you can see it in our society now. Some people are functioning on their emotions rather than on their rational minds. And also not yet connected with their own truth, so they're following dynamic leaders, and you might kind of see how that's happening right now. And from there, it's like at that point we get to the point where we look at it as Philip and I did, actually, with a spiritual group we were in many years ago, and say, well, if this guy has all the truth, why can't I have the truth? And that sets us off. That's really where the spiritual journey, I think, consciously begins. It's like you jump over the fence out of the herd of humanity into the wilderness, and then you're in the 3rd stage or chakra, which is about power. So you're taking your own power, you're taking it back from whoever it is that you gave it to before. And so you're wandering around out in the wilderness, empowering yourself. And that makes you think, well, here I am and things are different. Who am I really? And that leads you to the spiritual bridge, and that's where you discover your true identity. And in that stage, have to really collapse all of those blocks that have prevented us from connecting with the truth in our hearts. And so we do that, and that it's the stage we call it embracing yourself. When we're able to just really fully embrace ourselves, that takes us to the next stage, which is these are the higher, you're connecting with a higher, I would say, a higher dimension of way of being in the world. So this is the higher physical, which is your creativity and expression. So instead of being here to survive, you're here to express your creativity and express your own divine nature. And then this goes to your vision then, and to the truth. This is the higher, so your higher emotional, higher mental, and then above the head, the next level. So, and there's more. It doesn't just stop. If someone, and I know you said you awakened, and I think you also know that doesn't mean it was the end of the journey. It's like you awakened to a new part of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't detected any end to it myself so far. And that's really one of the blessings of it. Mm-hmm. But that's the way that we map it out for people.
Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. Now, are you calling each one of those steps activations? You said that.
Yeah, we call them the 7 spiritual activations.
Okay.
Because when you complete one, it's like all of a sudden it's like, wow, I understand something now. It's like, where did this come from?
Uh-huh.
You finish whatever the lesson is, like in the heart, it is embracing yourself and releasing all of those blocks to your divinity. And then the way that I perceive it and I've experienced is, it's like then you receive a download kind of from above of more truth. Mm-hmm. So truth also has levels. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That there are different ways of understanding truth, and our understanding of what is true evolves as we move more towards unity, which is ultimately, it's a very simple process. Actually, it's all about just going back to the truth that everything is connected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in between, there's a lot of myths of trying to understand what this is all about, what life is about, how things work. Because I know for myself, I was so curious and I was asking questions all the time. And it was just like, oh my God. And so Jesus just kept giving me more and more myths as a way for me to grasp what is going on. Mm-hmm. Because the truth is so expansive that it's difficult to understand that in a human mind, because all it is just oneness. But you're curious as, how does this happen? How do we have this life experience if we're spirit? So I know that from the moment I first woke up, and yes, we are in an awakening state all the time, learning more and more about ourselves, and the truths change of where you are in whatever you want to call it, a level or what stage, step, activation that so when I go back through my books, I notice I don't believe that anymore. That was given to me to help me bridge some wisdom, mm-hmm. so that I was not ready for some of the other information, or I wouldn't receive it. I just
right. Yeah, you weren't ready for it.
I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, and that is true. And interestingly, another, I think, challenge with it is that society in general is not that far along. If you get to that place of really opening to the truth, most of society is not there. So then you're also opening yourself to ridicule and all the things that go with that, and really questioning, well, am I just imagining all of this? People tell me that I'm crazy. my father was just vehemently opposed to what I was doing. He told me it was the most stupid thing he ever heard. He was an alcoholic and very vehement in his opinions. And that hurt to the point where then it didn't. And that's this, where you open to your own expression and you're not affected so much by what other people tell you about yourself.
Right.
Not that we want to be open always to good, positive feedback, but but if people are just trying to drag us down, like wallowing in the mud in fear and separation, it's not an option at a certain point.
No. And so getting back to the power of love, the more time you spend in that space, within your own heart and connecting, it doesn't matter as much as what you're saying, because you become more courageous.
Right.
You have more ownership of your own truth, rather than listening to somebody else's version of what they think your truth is. And so I know, even for me, that the more time I spent with God and Jesus and the angels, and understood, what I call that, I went through all my spiritual development within. They taught me everything. They went through every step of my life and healed me, healed all of those issues, from that time. And what that did is give me the courage and the belief, because the love is so profound, that when somebody thinks you're woo-woo, or whatever the case might be, or gives you a different version of yourself, you get much better at standing in your truth.
Right.
Becoming stronger.
Yeah, it's interesting. In our class, we had a class last night, and we were actually doing age regression, and I do a demonstration with the class every time when I'm teaching. So the topic for the demonstration, the woman was telling me that people criticized her for some of the things that she was doing. Like she's an older woman. She's actually just a wonderful, delightful spiritual being, very, very open to her own path. But when people confronted her, like one thing is, she said she didn't want to have a relationship with a man. It wasn't a priority for her, and people would criticize her and she would become frustrated. Well, if it's causing frustration, something is not completely resolved within us. So we did a healing process, and actually went back in time to her early childhood, when before she could even talk, she realized that people were trying to constrict her. She felt her creativity was being diminished. Even then, she couldn't describe it because she wasn't even verbal, but she was frustrated by that, and it was a pattern that carried through her whole life until now. And then we cleared it, and she was able to see, well, I can feel that way, they can feel a different way, and that's okay. I don't have to be frustrated because they don't understand me. I can just be, and let them be.
That's
and
beautiful.
So that's the kind of transformation that can occur.
That's beautiful. What a gift you bring, and Philip, to your students and to the world. I have somebody asking on Facebook what the name of your book is again that you were talking about.
Oh, that one, Getting Through to Your Soul.
Okay.
And it is available on Amazon.
Okay.
I think we even put it in Kindle, so paperback and Kindle.
Okay.
And it goes through the stages of development. It goes through actually a wonderful spiritual healing technique that we developed ourselves, and also puts all of it into the context of those stages as we identified them.
That's awesome. So Jane, are you ready to do a soul centering meditation with us?
Yes, I'm delighted to do it. And another thing about what I was thinking for today is that I would do a variation on it that included healing with the energy of love.
Beautiful.
So it's going to be a little different than the basic soul centering process, which is actually in that book. And I can also refer to where people can find it on our website. This one is just a little different and special. So if we're going to focus on healing, you have to have something to heal. And I'm suggesting for people who are listening and viewing to maybe focus on stresses that you're noticing. And maybe just something simple like maybe anxiety or confusion over all of these things that are going on now, or worrying about what's going to happen in the future, any kind of those restrictive states that hold you down. And if you first, when we do healing, we have people measure before and after. And this is another thing about involving the rational mind. It loves to measure things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I'm going to measure. And then you can tell before and after, because sometimes otherwise people might say, well, I'm feeling so good now, I guess I wasn't stressed after all. It's like they can't quite put it together in their mind. So just focusing again on whatever that stress is, measure kind of what you notice in your kind of being right now on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being no stress, 10 being just total stress, where you might be in terms of stress. And then also just notice how your posture wants to settle when you feel that stress. Because our body, everything is connected. Our body reflects our state. And then also notice how alive you feel, like how energized you feel on a scale of 0 to 10. It might help to write those things down just to have something before. And then we can just go into the process, and the mind, that rational mind, this is an opportunity actually for it to relax too, and allow us to go through this kind of more easygoing process. And then it can come back and evaluate at the end. So we can start by closing our eyes and shifting your focus now from all those thoughts that go through your mind to your breath, breathing in pure energy and light as you inhale, and then releasing any tension that you notice as you exhale. And you can focus in your mind, in your imagination, on sending that love and that clear energy anywhere you want in your body. So you can send it. You might notice tension in your neck and shoulders. We often carry tension there. You can just invite that clear energy to go into your shoulders and release, and even into your brain. Just sending it in there and allowing any thoughts that you don't need now to drift off. As we said to the rational mind, you can come back later. This is just a time to relax and be more in your body. And just feel yourself settling into awareness of your body, being in your body in this moment. And then breathing in lighter energy now with every inhale, so that your body feels lighter as you breathe. And then notice that you become so light you feel like you could start to float. And just in a very safe way, whatever that is for you, allow yourself to float upward safely and gently, moving into the higher realms of reality. And it's interesting that the suggestion of floating upward holds within it a suggestion to go to a higher place in your awareness. So as you continue to imagine floating, you can imagine yourself rising to a higher place where you can get a more expansive view. It might be a place like a mountaintop or a billowy cloud, a star, or some other expansive place, a loving place. And you'll find the perfect place for you. So just allow yourself to go there now and settle in wherever you are. And as you arrive there, notice what you sense, the sights there. What do you see around you? The heavens and the earth. What do you hear? Do you hear any sounds? Are there any sounds in that environment? And what do you feel? feeling emotionally, and also feeling in your body. What do you notice feeling in your body? And then above all, notice the expansive view from this higher place, a loving place. And you can, from there, you can look down and see the place where you started below you, where your body is now, and the heavens above you. You may also sense angels, guides, masters, who so beautifully watch over you. And this takes us to the essence of the soul centering process, breathing love, feeling love in the air, and breathing that love into every cell of your body as you inhale now. And as you continue, focus on breathing that love right into the area around your heart, opening to the love you hold there. And if you're visually oriented, you might see as you breathe more love into your heart, a light that becomes brighter as you breathe more energy into it. You might feel an expansion occurring in your heart and an opening in your heart. Whatever it is, just allow that to expand out, feeling the love in your heart expanding out to a point where it's ready to radiate out around you, filling your whole space. So it goes all through your body. And sometimes I like to imagine breathing love into every cell, breathing little hearts into every cell. You might notice as you do that your body tingles. The cells love love. And then also then allowing that loving light to radiate out, filling the whole space around you, which is your energy field. So that it's all within you and all around you. And as you do that, you might also want to expand out. We contract ourselves. We were talking about that earlier. We contract ourselves because we're concerned about how those around us might respond. This is your time. You're free to be yourself, fully yourself now. So just feel how that is, being filled with love and surrounded by love. And then notice that light above you, which is your source, and allow an even higher frequency of divine love to flow down from that source. So it can flow in through the top of your head, again, filling your body, your whole body with that higher frequency of love, all the way down to the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes. And again, radiating out, filling that whole space around you with that loving energy. And sensing the truth of who you are from this perspective, a wonderful spiritual being who deserves love, who is love, and who has the ability to radiate love all around you. And this is really the truth. And in this place, with this awareness, you can now notice, how alive do you feel? How energized do you feel on a scale of 0 to 10? And also notice your posture. Does it feel any different than it did before when you started? You can also ask yourself if there's a message for you now from this lofty, loving place. What does the universe want you to know right now? Something simple. And maybe if you look around, there's also a gift for you, something you can receive in your hands. It might be a crystal or a pearl or a flower. It could be anything. Just something that you can take back with you to remind you of this place. And now, feeling this love, identify a color that represents this divine love to you. And we'll use this color for that healing we were talking about, very simply. So I don't want to suggest what it is for you, because for each person, these things are individual, but you can imagine now allowing that color, or it could be a rainbow of colors, it could be different colors, several colors. Just fill your whole body, every cell of your body with that, and allow that color to radiate out around you, filling your space. And as you do that also let that color flow down to where you started, to where your physical body is now, and fill that space with that love and with that light and that beautiful color or colors, whatever they are. And then follow it down from that spiritual place, follow it back down to where you started. And notice how you feel now about the stress that you noticed at first, if you noticed something, and measure that again on a scale of 0 to 10. And again, being now back in your physical body, how alive you feel and how what your posture is like now. Notice that again. And in most cases, there are differences between the before and the after. I hope that that happened for you. And this is an example of the power of love, the power that love has to transform your life. And you can do this with any issue by going up to that perfect higher place for you, embracing love in your heart, inviting divine love down from above, and then blasting it down back into your reality. And from there, also, you can carry with you that love. That's my goal, is throughout the day just to continue to breathe in love, to remind myself of love and stay connected. We talked about that difference between connectedness and separation. Embrace the truth of who you are, that this wonderful spiritual being, deserving of love, and here with something special to offer. Bring that into your life and then radiate that love out into your community. That is a gift that you can give to the world. And then again, you might, if you received a gift, imagine that now. And you can even, in some cases, I've had, and I've done it myself, people will then get something physical that reminds them of whatever that gift was. And I right now I've been focusing, I got this selenite heart. You can open your eyes if you wish, whenever you feel ready. I got this selenite heart that I hold. It just is so beautiful and full of energy. And I've got hearts all over the place. But it might be something else, it might be whatever it is, it has special meaning for you. So that's the soul centering and healing.
Thank you, Jane. That was absolutely beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was.
I enjoyed it. I even feel better, and I thought I felt pretty good to start.
Yeah, I just feel more filled up, and more peaceful and relaxed. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I saw a red heart, so it was little red hearts going through me.
You can, if you don't have one, you can get those too.
Oh yeah. Actually, one of the people listening, I call her the Heart Lady, Marietta Stoner, and she makes beautiful hearts, actually, for outside of your house with lights all around them.
Oh wow!
So, yeah. So I love hearts, and a lot of times I wear one. I don't have it on today.
Yeah, I have one.
But what a great way,
that.
symbolically, to remind you to touch base with your heart.
Right.
Breathe in love and breathe out love. Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful meditation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, some other words that you might want to share before we come to a closing soon?
I think really just to use this to learn to value yourself. I think that's really the essence of it. The essence, I think, of spiritual transformation is that a transformation in our perception of who we are. And the more we see ourselves as limited beings who are disempowered, that just means that we're not connecting as much as we can. So doing that process of connecting with the love in your heart every day, it changes it. And you can ask, when you're in that place, you can ask, what's the truth about this? Is it true that I'm flawed and I'm a worthless, person here that, that nobody, that doesn't deserve love? And you'll get the truth. And that's not what it is.
Never.
Yeah. So it is, embrace the love yourself.
And taking the time to give yourself that
Right.
so that you can hear and you can connect. I know for me, for many years, it was very difficult, that I felt guilty about taking time for myself. I was raising
Right.
a family and working, and I was like, "Oh, I have no time for this. I have no
Yeah.
time for this."
Right. Yeah, and it is what I found actually, which I kind of forgot to say when I started, and I would spend 10 or 15 minutes. I had so much more energy. I just actually then couldn't wait to get up in the morning. And I had been in a, kind of a, some people call dark night of the soul too, when you get into that heart place of, confronting all of the what's happening to you. And I really wasn't at all interested in getting up in the morning.
Mhm.
But as soon as I started this, I couldn't wait to get up, and I couldn't wait to just write a few things down. And then I started also finding other ways to enjoy my life more. And it really, that was the beginning of a whole new, I think, me.
Mhm.
And that also was leading into the new work that Philip and I do, or it was new then 30 years ago. The work that Philip was an educator, I was an architect, and we completely shifted into the work that we're doing now.
Mhm. Into your divine calling, your
Right,
purpose of
right,
your
right.
gifts.
Yeah, yeah, and that what we were doing before was not our purpose.
Mhm.
It's interesting because wherever a person is coming from, it's happened for a reason also. And I found, even though I'm not doing architecture, obviously, but a lot of the things I learned, I'm using. And the same with Philip. We probably wouldn't have become teachers if he hadn't been an educator.
Mhm.
So it all builds on really what you've gained from the past, too. You don't just like leave the past behind completely, you draw from it.
Mhm. Yeah. I totally agree with you. I've done the same myself. Every step of the way is a stepping stone that you continually to use the rest of your life.
Right,
Yeah, there's no
right.
waste. There's
No,
no
no.
waste at all.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
as much as we can embrace that too, then we can appreciate the journey.
Mhm.
There are things that happen that are not easy.
Mhm.
One of the things that was really instrumental for me was the loss of my brother, my only brother, to alcoholism when in his late 40s. And I remember when there was a whole, it's a long story, the whole thing leading up to it. But the day before, actually, he died, or then that night, I was thinking, well, he can't die because I couldn't bear it. I don't have it within me to be able to tolerate that to happen. The next day, he died.
Mhm.
And it was really hard. But another thing I realized from all of that is that I became stronger. That was one thing. And I also realized he didn't have a future. It was Death is not also a failure. He moved on. He was in a dead end and he needed to move on. So I learned a lot from it, and I can't say that I wish it had been otherwise
Mhm.
because it was part of the journey.
Mhm. That's a beautiful share. Thank you, Jane. Thank you. And we know that all of us go through different things along this journey that really push us to see the
Right,
strength inside of us and to grow. And they're not always in the ways that we would prefer at all. But
right. Yeah, now
hmm
we're being tested now,
oh
or
yeah,
it's something's happening. Something
most
happening, but we don't know what it is.
most definitely. I totally agree. We don't know what it is, but we have to imagine that it's all good and because God is good.
Right.
Because love is good.
Right, and things happen for a reason, so there's a
hmm
reason for this. We can't It's too early for us to know what it is. We can
hmm
speculate,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
right now we can just be in the process.
hmm
And
I.
also not allow ourselves to be dragged down by the things we can't change, which is a lot right now.
Mhm. Right.
We have to be able to just still be joyful and loving and live our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And trust the process. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's a big test. Just I got this just before all the stores closed down. And interestingly enough, trust the journey. And I've been keeping it on my desk because right now that's a big test for us. Because what does that mean to trust the journey? It means you must, there must be something more than what we're seeing physically. So interesting. It's interesting.
It is very interesting. It's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So Jane, can you please tell people how to get in touch with you?
Yes. And I wanted to, I have it here. What did I do? Oh, here it is. I wanted to share a link to the soul centering process on our website. It's a long URL, so we got a tiny URL for it. And I'll give you also our website, the main URL in a minute. It's tinyurl.com/soul-center. And so if you go there, you can find the basic version of that process. And we have a very large website. We started it in the late 90s, so it's huge and it has many different parts to it. The main page is gettingthrough.org, which is getting, thru.org, /holistic, HOLISTIC. You can go to gettingthrough.org /awakenings to find out about Awakenings Institute, about the organization behind all of it. And then there are other places. There are lots of links you can poke around and explore.
Okay. And also, and I'll put that link also in the comment bar so people can also find it in there. But you also do a podcast, you and Philip.
Right. Yeah, it's called Supercharge Your Life. On Facebook on Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're in Pacific time. And it's at facebook.com /soul of success, all in one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So please check out Jane and Philip's website and all the wonderful stuff that they do to help people in their spiritual journey.
Thank you, Deb.
Oh, the power of love. It is wonderful. And I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. I feel terrific.
I do too. I do too. Talking about love always makes you feel terrific, and your soul centering meditation's beautiful. So, you're very welcome. So you can find me again later on Enlightened World Network at 5:00 with Divine Relationship Recovery, and I will see you there about the power of pressure in your passion. Until then, when in doubt, never underestimate the power of prayer. You are being heard throughout the universe, and it always responds with infinite and eternal love. Remember to go inside and listen through your heart for the whispers of heaven. I love you, and God bless you.
You've been listening to another fabulous program on Angel Heart Radio. Our goal is to remind you of how much you matter in the world and to let you know that we appreciate who you are in the world. You can check out who's on, when we're on, and who our guests are at angelheartradio.com. Everything is there. It's all just one click away. Angel Heart Radio programs are powerful tools to help you in your life and your life experience. They are not intended, nor should they, be used to replace your medical or legal advice.
Powered by love, Angel Heart Radio is brought to you by AngelLight777.com.
The views and opinions expressed by Angel Heart Radio hosts, guests, co-hosts and associates should not be construed as advice from Angel Heart Radio.